Everyone laughed when bankrupt millionaire Robert Caldwell took in homeless girl Lily. They called him foolish. But when Robert discovered Lily's incredible math skills, everything changed. Together, they created a brilliant invention that not only saved his future, but gave them both the family they desperately needed. Before watching full video, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The bitter January wind whipped through the torn sleeve of Robert Caldwell's once expensive coat as he hunched over a cup of coffee in the small downtown diner. 3 years ago, he had been the CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, with a $30 million fortune and a mansion overlooking the Pacific. Now at 45, he sat alone in a cheap diner, his last $10 spread across the week ahead. "More coffee, Mr. Caldwell?" asked Darlene, the waitress who had known him since his downfall. She was one of the few who still treated him with respect. "Not today, Darlene. Trying to stretch the budget," he replied with a weak smile. The financial crash had decimated his real estate empire. Bad investments, a divorce that took half of what remained, and a disastrous attempt to rebuild had left the once proud millionaire with nothing but a small rented apartment and the pitying stares of former associates. As Robert gathered his worn leather notebook, the one where he still scribbled business ideas that nobody wanted to hear, a commotion erupted outside the diner. A small girl in a ragged coat darted between customers, her hand reaching for unattended plates. "Hey, stop that thief!" shouted the cook as the child grabbed half a sandwich and bolted toward the door. Without thinking, Robert stuck out his foot slightly, causing the girl to tumble. The sandwich fell to the floor, and the child looked up at him with fierce, intelligent eyes that held no fear, only calculation and defiance. "I'm sorry," Robert said immediately, regretting his impulsive action. "Are you hurt?" The girl, no more than 8 or 9, didn't answer. She was painfully thin, her dark hair matted and her clothes layered against the cold. "She's been stealing food all week," the cook grumbled, approaching with a broom. "I've called social services twice, but she keeps running away." Something about the girl's determined gaze struck Robert. In those eyes, he saw a familiar spark, the same one he'd once had before life crushed it out of him. "I'll pay for whatever she took," Robert offered, despite knowing he could barely afford it. People in the diner stared. Some recognized him, the bankrupt millionaire playing charity with money he didn't have. "That's Robert Caldwell," he overheard someone whisper. "Used to be worth millions. Now he's feeding street rats." The girl heard it too, her eyes narrowing at being called a rat. She stood straight, dignity intact despite her circumstances. "What's your name?" Robert asked, kneeling to her level. She remained silent, studying him with a wary intelligence that seemed far beyond her years. "I'm Robert. If you'll sit down, I'll buy you a proper meal." After a tense moment, she spoke. "Lily. My name is Lily." Social services arrived an hour later. By then, Robert had learned that Lily had been on the streets for 2 months since her mother died. She had no other family she knew of and had been avoiding the system, having had a bad experience at her first foster placement. What struck Robert most was how Lily talked, articulate, thoughtful, with vocabulary no ordinary 8-year-old would possess. When he'd asked about school, her eyes had lit up briefly before dimming again. "I like school. Math was my favorite. But I haven't gone since Mom got sick." When the social worker arrived, a tired-looking woman named Ms. Bennett, Robert surprised himself by speaking up. "I'd like to apply to be her foster parent." The diner fell silent. Then someone snickered. "Mr. Caldwell," Ms. Bennett said gently, recognizing him, "fostering requires stable income, proper housing and—" "I know what it requires," he interrupted. "I had a setback, but I'm working on a new business. I have a clean apartment and enough to provide for her." This was stretching the truth considerably. His new business consisted of consulting gigs that barely covered rent. More whispers circulated. A woman at the counter laughed outright. "The bankrupt millionaire wants to play daddy," someone muttered. Lily, who had remained silent throughout, suddenly spoke up. "I want to go with him." Ms. Bennett looked skeptical but took down Robert's information. "We'll run a background check, but I should warn you, there's a long process and given your financial situation." Robert stood firm. "I'll do whatever it takes." As they left the diner, the whispers and laughter followed them. Robert felt a small hand slip into his. "They think you're foolish," Lily said simply. "Maybe I am," he admitted. "I don't think so," she replied. "You remind me of my mom. She always said kindness isn't foolish even when people think it is." The following weeks were a battle with bureaucracy. Robert's background check came back clean, but his financial situation raised red flags. He took on more consulting jobs, stretched his budget even thinner, and fought to make his small apartment meet foster care standards. Meanwhile, Lily remained in a temporary group home, where Robert visited as often as allowed. Their connection grew stronger with each visit. He brought her books, which she devoured at an astonishing rate. "Mr. Caldwell," said the group home director one day, "have you noticed how advanced Lily is? She's been helping the other children with their homework, even the teenagers." Robert had noticed. During their conversations, Lily showed knowledge far beyond her years, especially in mathematics and science. She could calculate complex math problems in her head and asked questions that often left Robert searching for answers. Finally, after 6 weeks of persistence, Robert was granted temporary fostering rights, pending continued financial stability. The day he brought Lily to his small apartment was the happiest he'd felt in years. "It's not much," he apologized, showing her the converted office he'd set up as her bedroom. Lily looked around with wide eyes. "It has walls and a roof. And books." She pointed to the small bookshelf Robert had filled with titles from the second-hand store. "It's perfect." That night, as Robert tucked her in, Lily asked, "Why did you want me?" "Everyone thinks you made a mistake." Robert considered the question carefully. "Maybe because we're both starting over. And maybe because when I look at you, I see possibility, not just problems." Their first month together was filled with adjustments. Robert enrolled Lily in the local public school, where the principal suggested placement testing after their initial interview. "Based on our conversation, I suspect Lily might be operating above her age level," the principal explained. The results shocked everyone but Robert, who had begun to suspect the truth. Lily tested at a high school level in mathematics and science, and well above her age in every other subject. "She's not just bright," the educational psychologist told Robert. "Preliminary testing suggests Lily might be what we call profoundly gifted, an IQ potentially above 150. We'll need more comprehensive testing to confirm." The school recommended an advanced program at a private academy known for nurturing exceptional children. The tuition was far beyond Robert's means, but he promised to find a way. Meanwhile, his former business acquaintances continued to mock his new life. At a job interview with a former colleague, Robert endured barely concealed contempt. "So you're playing daddy to some street kid? How charitable," the man said with a smirk. "Maybe you should focus on rebuilding your own life before taking on strays." Robert didn't get the job. On his way home, he passed the headquarters of his former company, now owned by competitors who had swooped in during his bankruptcy. The gleaming tower seemed to mock him. But when he arrived home to find Lily at the kitchen table, surrounded by books and papers, working through complex equations, his perspective shifted. "I think I found an error in this textbook," she said without looking up. "The formula they're using doesn't account for this variable." Robert looked over her shoulder at the high school physics problem she was solving. She was right. That night he made a decision. "Lily, how would you feel about helping me with a business idea?" Robert had been developing a concept for efficient energy management in commercial buildings, an idea his former investors had dismissed as too theoretical. With Lily's mathematical insights, they refined the algorithms over weekends and evenings. "If we adjust the variables here," Lily would say, pointing to his calculations, "the efficiency increases by another 4.2%. Robert leveraged his remaining industry contacts to secure a meeting with a small investment group. When he arrived with Lily, eyebrows raised. "Bring your daughter to work day?" one investor joked. "Lily is my partner," Robert replied firmly. "She's also the mathematical mind behind our efficiency algorithms." The presentation began with skepticism, but when Lily confidently explained the complex mathematical models, speaking with clarity that belied her age, the room fell silent. "She can't possibly understand these concepts," one investor challenged. "Test me," Lily replied calmly. The investor posed a complex problem involving energy load balancing. Lily worked it out verbally, explaining each step with the confidence of a seasoned engineer. The meeting ended with tentative interest and a request for a prototype demonstration. It wasn't the enthusiastic investment Robert had hoped for, but it was a start. "They didn't believe in us," Lily said as they walked home. "Not yet," Robert agreed. "But they will." The school continued pressing about the advanced academy, emphasizing that Lily's extraordinary abilities needed proper nurturing. The comprehensive testing had confirmed earlier findings. Lily possessed one of the highest IQs ever recorded in a child her age. "She's solving university-level mathematics problems," her teacher explained. "We simply don't have the resources to challenge her appropriately." The academy offered a scholarship that would cover half the tuition, still leaving an impossible sum for Robert to pay. His fostering stipend barely covered their basic needs, and his consulting work remained sporadic. Meanwhile, Robert and Lily continued developing their energy management system. Robert's old laptop frequently crashed under the demands of their modeling software, and they worked late into the night, Lily often falling asleep amid pages of calculations. The social worker, Ms. Bennett, visited monthly to assess their situation. During her 6th visit, she expressed concerns. Lily stays up too late working on these projects. She needs proper sleep, appropriate childhood activities, and a properly funded education. The judge will review your fostering arrangement next month, and I'm worried about my recommendation. After she left, Lily found Robert sitting with his head in his hands. They're going to take me away, aren't they? She asked quietly. Not if I can help it, Robert promised, though he didn't know how he would keep that promise. That weekend, Robert took Lily to the public library to use their computers for additional research. As Lily worked, a woman at a neighboring terminal kept glancing their way, clearly intrigued by the child working through complex calculations. Finally, she approached them. Excuse me, but is that a thermal efficiency algorithm your daughter is working on? Robert explained their project briefly. The woman introduced herself as Dr. Eleanor Wells, a professor of environmental engineering at the State University. This is fascinating work, she said, examining Lily's calculations. We have a grant program for innovative green technologies. Would you be interested in applying? It was the first stroke of luck they'd had in months. With Dr. Wells' guidance, they submitted a grant application. 2 weeks later, they received $50,000 in seed funding to develop a prototype of their energy management system. Robert immediately used some of the funds to secure better housing. A small house near the university where Dr. Wells offered Lily the chance to audit advanced classes despite her age. The academy agreed to a payment plan for the remaining tuition, which the grant would now cover. At their court review, Ms. Bennett noted the improved circumstances. The judge extended Robert's fostering arrangement, with a path to permanent adoption if stability continued. As word of Lily's extraordinary abilities spread through academic circles, more opportunities emerged. A technology journal published an article about the 9-year-old mathematical prodigy, working on revolutionary energy algorithms. Former colleagues who had mocked Robert now called with partnership offers, which he politely declined. Why didn't you accept? Lily asked after one such call. Mr. Harrington has a big company. He could make our system famous. Robert smiled. Because some people only see value when others point it out first. We don't need them anymore. 6 months later, Robert and Lily stood in the control room of a mid-sized office building, watching as their system was activated for the first demonstration. Representatives from the university, the city's environmental department, and several potential investors observed as the building's energy consumption began to drop immediately. A 17% reduction in real time, announced the building manager, checking the metrics. That's better than you projected. The city's environmental director stepped forward. If this performs consistently, we want to implement it in all municipal buildings. That night, they celebrated with ice cream in the park near their home. Lily, now more confident and less guarded, swung her legs as she sat on a bench. Are we rich now? She asked. Robert laughed. Not yet. But we're secure, and that's better than being rich. You were rich before. Was it nice? Robert considered the question. Parts of it were. But I was alone. Now I have you. Lily leaned against his shoulder. I used to think being smart was bad luck. Mom said I got it from my dad, but she never told me who he was. At school, kids called me weird. In the group home, they took my books away because it made other kids feel bad. Being exceptional is never bad luck, Robert told her. It just means you need to find the right place to belong. The energy management system, now branded as Ecologic, exceeded all performance benchmarks during its 6-month trial. Robert formed a company with Lily named as co-inventor on all patents, with a trust established to secure her future education and well-being. On the first anniversary of the day they met, Robert received 2 pieces of news. First, a major energy company offered to license their technology for a sum that would indeed make them wealthy again, though more modestly and sustainably than before. Second, the final adoption approval came through. That evening they sat on the porch of their house looking at the stars. Lily, now more comfortable showing her emotions, asked the question she'd been holding inside. Why did you stop that day? You could have let me run out of the diner. Robert thought back to that cold January morning. I saw something in your eyes. Something that reminded me of myself when I was young and hungry for a chance. Lily nodded. I saw something in you too. Everyone else looked at me and saw a problem. You looked at me and just saw me. Robert put his arm around her shoulders. We saved each other, I think. As they sat in comfortable silence, Robert reflected on the journey. From the ridicule of those who laughed at the bankrupt millionaire adopting a homeless girl, to the quiet respect they now commanded, the path had been neither easy nor straightforward. But watching Lily trace constellations in the night sky, explaining the mathematical patterns she saw in their arrangements, Robert knew that all the struggle had been worthwhile. Together, they had transformed loss into opportunity, finding in each other not just family, but a shared vision of possibilities neither could have achieved alone. In the end, it wasn't Lily's extraordinary intelligence that had changed their lives. It was the ordinary human connection that had given them both a second chance. The girl who had once been called a street rat was now recognized as a young genius with boundless potential. And the man who had lost everything had found something far more valuable than his former fortune. Sometimes, Robert thought, the richest discoveries come disguised as our greatest misfortunes. And sometimes, the most brilliant minds shine in the most unlikely places, waiting only for someone willing to look past appearances and recognize the light within.